Hey there, folks. Welcome to lesson 21 of the CompTIA Network Plus course. Today's topic is spoofing. So let's jump right into it. What is spoofing? So, spoofing generally comes down to pretending to be something or someone that you are not. In other words, what we're saying is you are forging identity here, forging the identity of something or someone in the hopes of probably getting up to no good. At least in most cases, it's to get up to no good. So we can honestly say here, spoofing is forging something. Now, let me give you guys a couple examples of what spoofing could possibly be. It could, for example, be an email address that's being spoofed. In other words, email address spoofing. So I'm going to be sending you an email address that appears to be from a certain some place that you know or a certain someone you know. Meanwhile, it's not. It's actually, in fact, from me. I'm forging that person or that place's email address. Now, spoofing could also be a phone number, in other words, caller ID that's being spoofed here. So for various reasons, we'll get into each of these topics individually in just a moment. Spoofing can also be an IP address that's being spoofed. It can be a MAC address that's being spoofed, in other words, physical address of your computer or your device. And then lastly, folks, it can also, believe it or not, be a whole website that's being spoofed. Now, these are simply some of the most common examples of spoofing you get, but these are in no way the only kinds of spoofing you get. I've simply stated and listed the main kinds and the most well-known kinds that you'll probably encounter in everyday IT. Alright, so let's take a look at some of these individually, starting with the first one there, email address spoofing. So like I briefly said to you folks earlier, email address spoofing is when I, for example, send you an email and I'm basically forging someone you know or some place you know's email address, and I'm trying to trick you into thinking that I am that person or that I am that organization. It's basically what it comes down to. This is an example of a spoofed email address. So I can, for example, email you folks and I can tell you that I'm working for Microsoft, and I can even make this look like it's coming straight from Microsoft's email address. And the whole idea here is to trick you into believing that I am working for Microsoft in the hopes of you possibly disclosing something sensitive in nature to me. This could be a username, it could be a password, it could be a bank account number, anything of value really. So that's normally what spoofing comes down to. Spoofing is me forging something, in this case it's an email address, and it's not uncommon, it's actually very common to see spoofing being combined with something else, like a phishing attack. Phishing, of course, being me phishing for something sensitive value, like a username, a password, bank account numbers, anything really that's of value. So I can send you an email and I can make it look exactly like it's coming from your bank, perhaps. And if you receive an email coming from your bank, but it looks like it's coming from an @gmail.com address, that's already going to raise a couple of red flags. So even if you are not in IT, if you see an email coming from your bank, but it says it's from an @gmail.com address, yeah, that's going to look a little bit suspicious, isn't it? But what if you received an email from your bank and it actually looks like it's from the exact same address your bank would normally mail you from? Now it's kind of difficult to know for sure whether it's from the bank or not. Now, someone that's in IT like me and you guys, we might not fall victim to this because we obviously know what to look out for. But for someone that's not in IT, they would not know what to look out for, what signs to look out for. And that is where we come into play. It is our job to protect these people. So if you look at something like a doctor is not a stupid person. They're very clued up, very high IQ and all that, but they're experts in their own respective field, which is now medical. If a doctor explains something to you medical wise, I'm going to have no clue what they're saying because I'm an IT. I'm not a medical expert. And the same can go when you explain something technical or an IT to a doctor. They will have no clue what you're explaining. So just like it's their job to keep you healthy and safe, it is our job to keep them technologically safe. And that's where we come into play. It's our job to basically put in all kinds of measures in place that prevent these people from falling victim to these spoofing attacks and all of that. There's all kinds of softwares and tools and stuff you can go and make use of, guys. So I think you guys have got a general idea of what a spoofed email address could possibly be. Let's move on to the next topic, which is a spoofed phone number. It can also be referred to as a caller ID. Now, another example of this would probably be the banks. This is actually, strange enough, a very good example because I even myself experience this every day. And phone calls, believe it or not, is actually even hard to determine whether it's a spoof call or not. Even us IT guys can fall for this, so it's very difficult to really know when it's a real call or not. So I know it's not obviously the same for all countries, but in my country, often when the banks call me, they call me from a very ungodly long number. It's like almost twice the length of a normal number of my country. And so that kind of we've kind of associate these long numbers with the bank. So if I get a very long number calling me, it's probably the bank. And normally it's because they want to do some sort of telemarketing to sell me some sort of life insurance or debt protect or this or that. So, and then normally when they call you, they ask you for all kinds of details like, are we speaking to Mr. Blah blah? Can you please confirm your ID or social security number and this and that? They just want to make sure they are talking to who they intend on talking to, for obvious reasons. And the scammers take advantage of that. They know the banks call from these very weird numbers, and they know what kind of questions the banks are going to ask. So what they do now is they spoof those numbers. Sometimes they'll use the exact same numbers. Sometimes they'll use a number that just looks similar to the numbers of the bank. So when I say similar, it can just be a very long number. Instead of it being, let's say, an X amount of characters, let's say 10 digits, it'll maybe be 20 digits. It looks like a bank's number. So when a number like that calls you, which you're probably going to think is the bank in the first place, and when they start asking you the same kind of questions the bank would normally ask you, you're going to think nothing of it because you're going to think it's the bank. At least the average person is going to think it's the bank. And that becomes a problem. So even us IT guys, how are we going to know whether that's the bank or not? We're not. So I would say, ask them, first of all, okay, so what is this call regarding? If they say, okay, it's because we want to sell you life insurance, the chances are more than 90% you're going to drop the call and say, okay, you know what, I'm not interested. Bye, have a nice day. But for argument's sake, for the purposes of this demonstration, let's say you are interested in what they're selling. And let's say it's something like life insurance. So first of all, I would start off by saying, what are you calling me in regards with? If they say it's regarding life insurance, I'll tell them, okay, cool. It just so happens that I happen to be in the market for life insurance. But before I give you the details you just asked of me, let me verify if you are who you say you are. So you can think of this as two-way authentication. So now I'm going to ask this person, what is your name? What is your last name? What department are you at? And obviously we already know what bank this is. And then you're going to go and call the number at the back of your bank card, or you're going to go to your bank's official website. You're going to call that number there. You're going to ask to be transferred to that person in that department. And if he or she answers the phone, you can hear in the voice that it really is the person. Well, then you know it's legit. If they tell you, hey, no, this person doesn't exist, well, then you know you just sidestepped the scam. Nice spoofing attack you just sidestepped there. So yeah, now you know. Two-way authentication. And if you do happen to get a hold of this person and you really are still interested in this life insurance or whatever it may be, you can ask the person to call you back if you're concerned about the phone rates. Normally these bank phone numbers are toll-free from what I understand. At least most of them are. But if you're concerned it might not be, or if you know for a fact it might not be, you can simply ask the person to call you back. And I can guarantee you they will call you back because you are now what they consider a hot lead. The average telemarketer will probably call 100 people a day, of which one of them might sound interested in it, in whatever they're selling. Some of them probably would not even sound interested. So when one person like yourself even remotely sounds like you're interested, you will definitely get a call back because you are a hot lead. They're trying to make a sale in the end of the day, aren't they? It's just a living. Alright, so phone spoofing, phone number spoofing, or caller ID spoofing could be someone calling you from a number that seems like it might be from a certain organization, like a bank, or like it's from someone you know. Most commonly, it's going to be from some organization you know. The goal is generally to make the person feel more comfortable in answering the call and also to often trick the people into thinking it's from a certain organization. So exactly like my demonstration earlier, or my example earlier, where the bank would call you. Now, if I see it's a very long number, I might think, oh, okay, cool, this is the bank. And I'm going to answer it, meanwhile, it's not the bank. Other examples you can get of this is, let's say you're getting a phone call, but this phone call says plus, and then it gives you a very weird number, and you can see this is an international phone call. The chances of you answering that is very unlikely because you are probably not expecting international phone calls, and you're probably going to think this is some sort of scam or something not so nice. So, what if I were to go and spoof a number that's local in your area? If I spoof a number that's local in your area, the chances are not guaranteed that you're going to go and answer the phone call, but the chances are at least higher that you're going to answer the phone call because you're going to feel more comfortable answering a phone call that appears to be local from your area versus having a call coming from international. So yeah, I mean, you get a lot of these scammers, especially from certain countries in Africa, Middle Africa. They normally do all kinds of phone scams and stuff. And if I'm going to be calling you from a number in the Middle East, Middle Africa somewhere, yeah, you're probably not going to answer the phone call because you're going to suspect it's some sort of scam. But if I call you from a number that seems local, you might think it's legit. Alright folks, and let's move on to IP address spoofing. Now I'm going to make the assumption here that you guys already know what an IP address is because you've gotten this far in my Network Plus course. IP address spoofing is obviously faking an IP address to hide the real one. And I can probably make the assumption that you guys know that much. You could have probably guessed that much, but you probably want to know, why do people do this and how do people do this? Now, one of the reasons why we're going to go and do something like, forging an IP address is to possibly go and bypass certain securities. The same thing can be said about a MAC address, which is the next topic. So if I go and forge an IP address, I can go and bypass certain securities that's in a company and basically get up to some sort of shenanigans, which I'm not supposed to. Now, another reason why we might possibly want to go and forge an IP address is to go and trick certain systems into registering the wrong MAC address. This can be known as ARP poisoning. So to help elaborate on this, to help it make a little bit more sense, I'm going to drop a PC or two here down at the bottom for you guys. So there you guys go. There's two computers. Now what's going to happen here is one of these machines at some point in time is going to do what we call an ARP request on the network. And this is because he or she or it, it's not like these things have got a sex, so it is going to be looking for another specific device on the network. It is looking for a specific IP address on the network. So the one on the left here, let's say it's the one on the left that's looking for a certain device on the network. The one on the left is looking for the device on the right. And it's going to use the IP address on the right to find that device, obviously. It's going to do a broadcast and say, hello, where are you? I'm looking for you. This device on the right, you can see I've made it a computer, but in reality, it can also be a router. So here's a router for you guys. And just to really add some context here, let's give these two devices an IP address. So you can see if we've got an IP address for the device on the left, it's 0.5 at the end. There's an IP address for the device on the right. And there's obviously some random MAC addresses. I filled in some totally random MAC addresses for those devices there. So what's going to happen here is if the device on the left, being that computer, is looking for a specific device, whether it be a machine, a router, whatever it might be, it is going to do a broadcast, an ARP broadcast. It's going to basically say, hello, where are you? I'm looking for, let's say, 0.1. And 0.1 being the router there is going to reply and say, here I am, and this is my MAC address. You can see the MAC address is there below the router. So that router is going to reply to that broadcast saying, yes, I am here. Here I am. This is my IP. I am in fact 0.1, and this is my current MAC address. And what's going to happen is that machine on the left is now going to store that MAC address or that router. The next time that machine on the left wants to access that same device, that router, that machine, whatever it might be, it's not going to have to go through the whole shenanigans of doing a broadcast and all of that, because it's going to remember how to get there because of that MAC address. So that's called your ARP cache. It's like a little cache, a little short-term memory in that computer that remembers the MAC address that was hooked up or linked to that specific IP address, which in this case is now a router, but can alternatively be a computer as well. Now, why do we want to go and forge an IP address? Because I can go and do something called ARP poisoning, which is the actual topic here. So I'm going to drop an extra machine here, right above that little router there, and I'm going to give it the same IP address as that router. So that machine there is now forging the IP address of that router. You will, however, notice that the MAC address there is a different one. I purposely made this in red just for fun, because it makes it seem like an evil little PC, just for fun there. And what's going to happen is now this computer there is going to basically do like a little injection into that little ARP cache of that machine there on the left. It's going to say, hey, here I am. I'm still 0.1, but my MAC address is now the following. And that machine there on the left is not going to ask any questions. It's going to see, okay, well, that's still the same IP address, but I can see the MAC address has changed. Let me go and delete or remove the old one and replace it with this new MAC address. which is now in fact the wrong MAC address. And now the next time you go onto that machine there on the left, or that user goes there onto that machine on the left, he or she is going to go and type in the IP address of that device being 0.1, and guess where they're going to end up at? Are they going to end up at the router? No, they're not. They are now going to end up on the wrong device, which is a bit of a concern here. You're going to end up on the perpetrator's machine here, and they can go and do all kinds of not so nice things, obviously. So yeah, the list of evil things I can go and do with a spoofed IP address, guys, is just crazy. Anyway, folks, let's move on to the next one, which is MAC address spoofing. So first of all, just in case any of you guys have forgotten or you just don't know already, MAC address is also referred to as the physical address, or in some cases even as burned-in address. I think most of you guys will either just know this as the MAC address or the physical address. If you go into command prompt, in other words CMD, and you go and type in ipconfig/all, you'll see your MAC address is listed as physical address, not a burn-in address. That's just a term that we sometimes use in IT, but I'm throwing it in there just in case it's an exam. I highly doubt it, but just in case it is, there it is. At least now you guys know. So what is MAC address spoofing? I think this part you guys can guess. MAC spoofing is changing the physical address of your device. Now, there's a rumor around that says the physical address of a device, because all devices that can connect to a network has a MAC address, whether it be a laptop, desktop, tablet, phone, printer, scanner, access point, router, firewall, you name it, anything that's on a network has a MAC address. The rumor has it that these devices' MAC address, physical address in other words, cannot be changed. That is not the case. They can be changed. And if you look on a computer and a laptop and such, some of these drivers, many of these drivers actually allow you to go and change the MAC address. Now this begs the question, why do they allow for you to go and change the MAC address? There's all kinds of illegitimate software out there that also allows you to go and change it for all kinds of illegitimate reasons, but the driver sometimes has this function built in nowadays. Why would they allow for someone like me and you to go and change the MAC address of our device if it's supposed to be a device that's an address that's supposed to be permanent? This is because it's not necessarily for illegitimate reasons. It could possibly be for legitimate reasons too. So, changing the MAC address can be for both legitimate and non-legitimate reasons. So if I want to go and change it for a legitimate reason, this could be because a certain website or a certain server is expecting a certain MAC address, a specific MAC address. And if you don't go and change your MAC address of your device to a certain MAC address, a specific MAC address, that website of yours or your client or whatever you're trying to connect to, that server of yours, this could even be a requirement from your ISP, in other words your internet service provider, that you have to have a certain MAC address. And if you don't have that MAC address, you can go and connect whatever to whatever this resource might be. So this could be for a legitimate reason that you're going to go and change it to that. But now, just like I can go and change my MAC address to gain access to legitimate resources, I can also go and change my MAC address to gain access to illegitimate resources. So this can be for illegitimate reasons. A common scenario where you guys might encounter this is actually a MAC filter. There's many devices out there that's got what is known as a MAC filter. You can put this on a router, you can put this on an access point. So if you've got an access point or a router in, let's say, your office environment, your home environment, and you've implemented MAC filtering on it, that means you've implemented a filter on there, you've turned on a filter on it now, and this filter basically has memorized all the MAC addresses of all your devices in your home or in your office. Normally you have to go and punch them in manually. It's a bit of a painstaking process sometimes, unless you've got some fancy equipment. But if it's a normal small office, home office router or access point, or just a home router, access point, whatever the case might be, you're probably going to have to log in manually into that router access point. You're going to have to go to the MAC filter, turn it on, and you're going to have to go and get the MAC address of each phone, tablet, laptop, and desktop, and whatever device on your network that you would like to connect to that Wi-Fi. It's probably going to be a wireless connection. That's normally why we go and do it. You're going to have to go and record those MAC addresses in that MAC filter. And the next time anyone tries to connect with some sort of device to your wireless network, it's normally wireless like I said, it's not going to work. Even if they've got the username and the password, you could have literally written down the username and the password on a sticky note for these folks. They will not be able to connect unless their MAC address is in that MAC filter. So you can think of this as a whitelist. If you're not on the list, you ain't getting in. Now, some people know about this, and this is actually surprisingly very easy to go and bypass. All I need to go and do is I just need to go and get one of the MAC addresses of one of your devices that's already been allowed, get that MAC address, change my device's MAC address to that MAC address, and voila, behold, presto, I am in. It's really that easy, folks. So yeah, folks, MAC address spoofing can be used for all kinds of evil, not so nice things, but it generally comes down to bypassing some sort of security in order to gain access to something sensitive, some sort of sensitive resource inside your home, inside your office. It's generally not good. All right, and then the last one we had on our list there was website spoofing. So this is the fifth one. Yes, I'm only listing 5 things here for you guys, but in reality, I can tell you there's more kinds of spoofing out there. The kinds I've listed today is simply the main kinds and the most common kinds you guys are going to encounter. Now, what is website spoofing? I think you guys can probably already guess it's got to do with a website that's being faked here. So it's a website pretending to be another. It looks exactly like the original website, but it is a fake. Something you guys should probably be aware of, although I think some of you guys might be able to guess this part as well, is normally a spoofed website is combined with a phishing attack. So it's a spoofing attack combined with a phishing attack, and this is very common, to see a phishing attack and a spoofing attack being combined with one another. We briefly mentioned this, I believe, earlier when we spoke of email addresses. I'm going to forge an email address, which is spoofing, and why I'm doing that is because I'm hoping you're going to give me some sensitive information like a login, username and password, or a bank account number. So that's a combination of a spoofing attack and a phishing attack. When it comes to websites, I'm spoofing a website in the hopes of you maybe trying to log in on this fake website because it looks like the original, which means I'm going to get something sensitive. Probably your login details or the user's login details. So very common examples of websites that are being spoofed. This could be very, very many kinds of websites, but the most common kinds you guys would get is something like the login pages of various banks. This could even include, places like PayPal, for crying out loud, but this is probably going to be your official banks. And when you try to log on to your official bank account, via online banking, you're going to type in your username, you're going to type in your password. Meanwhile, you are not on your bank's website. It looks exactly like your bank's website, but it's not. So one of the things you should always go and do is, before you log into a place like your bank's website, anything very important, go check at the top in the URL bar, which shows the bank's address. Make sure you actually see the bank's address. That's one way you can actually catch this out, is by checking the URL. Same applies when you log into other websites. Check the URL. Some advice I'm also going to give you guys, which you probably know already, is never click on a link in an email that takes you to a website we need to go and log on to. Even if you really were intending on going to that website. So let's say you got an email from your bank that says you need to go and log on and do blah, 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 whatever. And maybe there's a link in the web, in that email, that says go click on this link to go and log on. And when you click on that link, it's probably going to end up taking you to a fake website. It's a fake version of the bank's website. You're going to think it's real because you were expecting to go to the bank anyway. You're going to go log on and they're going to have your details. So if you really do want to go and log on for whatever reason, do not click on the links in the email. Instead, open a browser and manually go and type it in. I know it takes longer. I know it's inconvenient. But at the end of the day here, we are talking about your money. And, when it comes to your money, I think, you're probably going to be willing to spend a little bit of extra few seconds there just to make sure someone's not actually going to go and steal your money. Anyway, so login pages of banks, that's one example. Another example I can give you guys is social media login pages. Oh dear Lord. Lots of this. This is very popular. So this includes, but it's not limited to, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, pretty much any kind of social media website. And the reason why these things get hacked is for so many reasons. You get spouses that want to go and hack one another's websites or social media pages because the one is angry with the other. Someone wants to go and hack their ex-boss or ex this or ex that. Some of these accounts just get hacked for spamming purposes. Sometimes they're hacked, but you don't know they're hacked. You can still use them, but your account has been hacked. It's been compromised to go and send out bulk forms of spam. Because normally these platforms like Facebook and what have you, it's got all kinds of filters in place that prevent these people from creating new accounts, especially when they try and make it from the same source. They prevent it from making new accounts, which means they can't spam. So instead, now we're hacking other people's accounts that do legit posts and all kinds of stuff. And when they use those legit accounts to go and do all kinds of spamming in the background, and in a lot of cases, the user is not aware of this, or by the time they find out, it's been months or it's been weeks. And maybe one of your friends will tell you, hey, my bro, you are sending all kinds of spam to me. Why are you sending me this spam? And then when you go check it out, you'll notice, oh, hang on, that was not me. And then you're going to end up changing your password. If you suspect your Facebook or whatever has been hacked, just change your password. It normally prohibits that software that's compromised your account from logging back in. So just change your password. You should be good. And don't click on any links. So if you're going to log on to any social media platform like Facebook, do not click on links that you receive, especially in your instant messages. Do not do that. It's the quickest way and the easiest way someone's going to compromise your Facebook. Although we're getting slightly off topic here when it comes to security, the topic today is, after all, spoofing. So yeah, guys, that is the topic for today. We've covered it all. We've covered 5 examples. If you've learned something, please do me a favor and give the video a like. It does help me. It does help the channel. It'll really be helping me out. Feel free to drop your thoughts down below. Maybe you've had a cool phishing experience or a cool spoofing experience. If you've had any experiences like that, or if you want to add on to what I've said, more than welcome to drop your thoughts down below. Let me know what you've experienced. Let me know what your thoughts are. And then lastly, guys, if you'd like to know when the next lesson in this course comes out or one of my other courses, remember to also subscribe. And then a special shout out and thank you to the sponsors of this channel. So these will be the PayPal sponsors and Patreon sponsors. There they are. Thank you very much, people. I really, really appreciate it. And also to those folks that keep clicking on that thanks button below the videos. I really appreciate it. Doesn't go unnoticed, guys. Really appreciate it. Alright guys, see you in lesson 22 of the CompTIA Network Plus course.